Well, my daughter Katie was killed when she was 13 years old by a drunk driver on October 29th, 1999. Katie was caring and loving. She was a leader. She was confident. She was fearless in many ways, very sensitive. She was super smart and kind of like a geek and cool at the same time. On the day she was born, I was painting a piece of furniture for her bedroom. And back then we didn't know if it was going to be a boy or a girl, so I remember being very neutral. And I was painting a piece of furniture. I kept feeling like I was having, these labor pains, and I was waiting and kind of put it off all day. And finally called my husband, and he picked me up, and we went to the hospital. And first baby, she's the baby that made me a mom. And we got there, and they're like, wow, this could take a while. And it was actually a lot quicker than that. And she was born, and it was funny because it was the change of shifts at the hospital. So she was born at like 11:15. So the nurses that were on till 11 didn't want to leave, and the nurses that came on were there. So there was like a huge amount of people and staff there when she was born. And she was born, she had a lot of hair, and everyone was just so amazed how much hair she had. And it was just a joyous day. I remember my mother-in-law stopped by and at the hospital, and my husband, and we were just thrilled to start our family with an oldest girl. She was so funny. She was funny, and she didn't know she was funny because she was a very deep thinker, and she was very intuitive at a very, very young age. And I think her funniest times for me were when she really wasn't trying to be funny, and she just was like an adult in a small child's body. Like when we brought her brother home from the hospital, and she was 2.5. And I remember, she wanted to help with the baby. And then I was sitting in the living room, and she said to me, so Mom, keep an eye on the baby, and I'll be right back. I have to go to the bathroom. And I thought, oh my gosh, like it was just so funny to see this like 2.5-year-old little girl who really thought that this was her responsibility, And then when her sister was born, Katie was 8, and she went to the hospital, my husband brought her over to see the baby, and she wanted to stay. And I said, well, honey, I don't know if you can stay, overnight. And she said, she went right up to the nurses and said, well, I'd like to stay tonight with my mom and the baby. And they said, well, you have to be 16. And she looked at me, she goes, that doesn't make any sense. And we cracked up because she was 8 and she was 16. And I said to the nurse, you really don't understand. She's actually an adult. She's in an 8-year-old body. And I think those to me were the funniest times because she just had no idea how wise she was at such a young age. And we would just laugh. She was just very, very funny. Not funny silly in a way, but funny, she had a really good sense of humor, and she was very witty. So she, loved to like kind of banter back and forth. She was very funny like that. And I think that's one thing that we miss about her, having her in our life and in our family dynamic, is that sort of bantering back and forth and in jest sort of humor that Katie had that is, after she was killed, it was just a loss of that personality in the space. And it's interesting because Katie was killed when she was 13, so we didn't have a lot of the, graduation from high school moments or the college moments. She wanted to be a doctor. So I knew she would have had those moments, but we didn't get there. This one's gonna be tough. I think one of the moments that I was most proud to be Katie's mom, ironically, was the day of her funeral. there was a little boy that came to the funeral home the morning of the funeral when we were saying our last goodbyes. And they were going to close the casket. And we didn't know who he was. So my husband and I went over and saw the mom. And she said he went to school with Katie. He was younger than Katie. And he was bullied at school. He had some special needs. And Katie, every day, would go out of her way to say hi to this little boy and ask him if he was having a good day. And to the point where this little boy wouldn't let his mom, he wouldn't take no for an answer. He wanted to say goodbye to her. So the mom brought him that morning so he could say goodbye. And I think it was one of my most proudest moments, thinking that she was that important to that little boy, that he needed to be there, because she'd never mentioned him to us. And she didn't do it to be in a club or to be to write about it in a college essay for an application for a scholarship. She did it because it meant a lot to her. So that could be maybe one of my proudest moments of her. She was an 8th grade student and a middle school girl. And she never bought into what the norm was of what was important. And I remember she came home one day and she said, I don't understand the lunchroom thing. I don't understand why, some people won't sit with certain people at tables and whatnot. She goes, why can't we just all sit together and have a good day? And I thought, she's really above some of the pettiness of that age group, and things like that really bothered her. She wanted to set a different example, and she didn't care what that cost, really. Well, Katie was our firstborn, so I always felt like she was teaching me how to be a mom. So I think that was my favorite part of the relationship, was learning from her how to be a mom and how to be the best mom I could be, not just for her, but for her siblings, and really, having time with her as she got a little bit older to do things one-on-one, that very kind of adult, mom-daughter relationship was some of my favorite times with her. I definitely feel like Katie valued people, relationships, friendship, family. That was what drove her. And I think she loved school, and she loved learning, and she loved sharing what she learned, and she loved helping people who maybe needed a little more help in learning. There were times when she would come home and tell us someone new came to the class and they were struggling. So she was going to talk to the teacher and see if she could work with that student. And my husband and I would just laugh, because it's most people are worried about that kid. Most people are worried about their own progress. And she cared deeply for the people and the relationships that she had, and they were her world. If I could say one more thing to Katie now, if I could have one more time with her, I think I would tell her, and hopefully she knew, she still knows, how proud we were of her. I would just hug her and just remember what her hair smelled like. Sorry. I guess if I had anything to say to anyone, Mom, it would be to really enjoy all the minutes. Enjoy the times when they're little, when they tell you that you're the best mom in the whole kingdom. And when they get older, remember the good times and don't make a big deal out of the times that might not be great, because those aren't the times that you're going to remember. You're going to remember the good times and have as many good times as you can, and put all those good times, in the forefront, and make sure you appreciate them, because they're so much more important than work or other things. And they're the times that are truly the best.